How easy it is to begin, whether it be a new language, a new relationship, or even a new Lenten resolution. Beginning is easy. But as you might remember, there is something even easier than beginning: giving up. Indeed, giving up when something becomes challenging, confronting, or demanding is the easiest thing in the world. Giving up is the easiest thing in the world. And perhaps this is truest when it comes to the life of faith. Getting baptized, beginning the journey to heaven, is one of the simplest things we could have ever done or could ever experience in our lives. For most of us, we quite literally had to do nothing. It happened to us when we were infants. And yet baptism is not an end in itself. Once the water is poured and the baptismal formula is spoken, then begins the challenge, the confrontation, and the call to actually become a saint. And sure, look, we have the power to say yes or no. That's the mystery of human freedom, right? God respects our choice. Yes, I'm going to become a saint. No, I'm not interested. What is clear, however, is that on that question, there's no middle ground. As Saint Therese of Lisieux said, you and I cannot be half saints. You must be a whole saint or no saint at all. But the temptation to give up on our faith, to neglect our prayer, to avoid that spiritual depth we know that we need, is something even the greatest of saints experience. They experience that same temptation. Why? Because at one point or another, we're all tempted to think that a life without deep faith, without deep commitment, is much easier. And what's easier will make life more comfortable, and what's more comfortable will therefore make life happier. You and I have to be so cautious not to be seduced by such fickle thinking. Instead, the struggle remains, and that is to remain conscious of what exactly we're turning down if we choose not to persevere. You know, we're turning down our own transfiguration, our own transformation in goodness, beauty, and truth. That's what's at stake. Remember, it's easier to walk down the mountain than up the mountain. But we miss the view. We miss the change in perspective. And we miss the transformation our hearts would have experienced on the way up. Sometimes perseverance in faith requires a moment of clarity, a turning point in our lives. Most of you know I lived in the UK for a number of years for further studies. One Sunday, I was supplying Mass at St. Mary's, Hampstead in London, and a man with his wife and 4 children came up to me and said, "Father, I want you to speak at a charity event that I run." And naturally I say, "Of course, happy to get involved, and here's my business card, please give me a ring." But also natural to my persona, I forgot. After Mass, worst time to ask, right? The heart is willing, but the flesh is weak. And so a few weeks later, back at the parish, the same man approaches me and says, "Father, you never rang me. You never rang me." And I said, "Look, I'm really sorry. I completely forgot. Busy with studies. I promise you I'll get in touch." But alas, once again, I forgot. Until I happened to be sitting in front of a television at Heathrow Airport, and the news comes up. And all of a sudden, I see that same man appear on the screen, walking in to the Prime Minister's house in England. And something clicks and, I forgot to contact that guy. And then I asked, but what on earth is he doing walking into 10 Downing Street? So it turns out this man is the founder of one of the most successful asset management companies in the world. And he's a global expert on finance. That's why he gets flown around, asked by prime ministers and presidents what to do for the economy. Anyhow, to cut a long story short, I sat down with him and we started talking about faith. And I said, "Look, the world of finance, the world that you're in, is a godless world. You know, I speak to other people, many people in your line of work. It's a godless place. What has kept you and your family coming to Mass every Sunday? So he told me what happened to him when he was in his early 20s. And he was this close to abandoning his Catholic faith, this close. He was feeling disillusioned with the people in the church, didn't find Catholics very friendly. The Protestants he was meeting at uni seemed to be a lot happier and chirpier, more inviting. He was searching intellectually. He's a bright man, obviously. He's looking for answers, but always left unsatisfied. And as such, he'd basically made up his mind to give up on the Catholic faith. But realizing the significance of that decision, he thought of an idea. What I will do is I will hike up a mountain in the Italian Alps. He's Italian by birth. And he prays, Lord, I'm going to open my heart to you. I'm going to leave all my worldly concerns at the bottom of this mountain. If I should stay a Catholic, give me a sign when I reach the top. So he said, you know, Father, all I did is walk up in silence and solitude. I think he said to me he had his Bible with him. And as he's approaching the top, he notices this man wearing a big white jacket. And as he approached the man wearing the white jacket, that man shouts out to him and says, young man, what are you looking for? Sort of reminiscent of the question that monks used to get asked when they turned up in the monastery for the first time. Quid pedis? What are you seeking? Why are you here? And David shouted, I'm seeking the truth. Something like that. Sto cercando la verità. And as he got closer, he realized the man that was shouting out to him was Pope John Paul II. Now the Saint Pope John Paul II. And now we know, once he'd passed away, how he would sneak out of the Vatican to go skiing, right? Go hiking. Davide met him, or encountered him. Now that encounter was a transfiguring moment for that man. And as he came down from the mountain, he realized that actually the Catholic faith was everything his heart was seeking. Just think of the radical change in perspective. You've gone from quite literally throwing in the towel to having such a radical transformation of perspective that now you realize you are about to give up the greatest gift you had. In life, you know, all of us have a responsibility to seek the truth. We all have our own mountain to climb to get to heaven. There will be times when we start to think, you know, the practice of my faith is irrelevant, prayer is secondary, Mass is optional. But again, we have to be cautious. We have to be cautious. If we are turning away from the challenge, then what we're really turning away from is our own fulfillment, our own salvation, giving up what's actually most important to our family. Everything about our Catholic faith, everything that is given to us by the church, through Christ, from Christ, is to make our lives transfigured, to make our lives more beautiful, more alive, more worthy of heaven. And as such, we lose absolutely nothing. In fact, we gain everything by persevering. So today we can ask ourselves, do we give our hearts to the world in self-indulgence? Or do we give our hearts to Christ in self-sacrifice? Do we climb or do we collapse? Do we transfigure or do we tumble? There is no such thing as a half saint in heaven. We have to be wholly committed or risk becoming nothing at all. And to you, dear parents who have children, your perseverance in faith plays a huge role in shaping your children's future. If you choose to climb, they are far more likely to see the path to heaven. But if you choose to tumble, they will find it harder to rise.